All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. In this video, I want to talk about classic physique and kind of do what we did for men's open bodybuilding in terms of trying to break down the scorecards and look at why some of the things happened that did. Specifically, in relation to this video, I want to look closely at Breon Ansley because to me, Breon taking 4th place was one of the most surprising decisions of the entire weekend across any of the categories, really. I was really taken aback when they announced Breon in 4th. Now, we've got the scorecards here, but interestingly enough, this scorecard is not broken down into prejudging and finals. It only shows the total score, which is the combination of the two scores. So we can't do exactly what we did for men's open bodybuilding, but we can see what the margins look like and what the difference between the placings were. Now, I actually heard that after receiving this placing, Breon was so, I guess upset would be the word, that now there's a rumor that he's going to be going back to 212. It looks like that maybe what we'd heard in the past, that this weight cut for classic physique was just too much for Breon in terms of it just hinders his physique and holds him back. Now, some people might not know that Breon actually started out in the 212 category. When he turned pro, I believe he turned pro in 2013, and he competed in 212 in 2014, where he competed at the New York Pro and the Europa Phoenix, where he placed 16th and 15th, respectively. I don't think he ever won a pro show, to my knowledge, as a 212 bodybuilder, because then in 2016, he would go on to compete in classic physique, where he would win the Prestige Crystal Cup, and then compete in the Olympia, where at his first Olympia, he would take 4th. So I'm assuming if he's considering a switch back to 212, which is what I've heard from multiple different people at this point, he was just as surprised with his placing as a lot of us were. So as you guys know, Terrence Ruffin won the show. A very impressive Ramon Roca Queiroz wound up in 2nd place with a total of 10 points. So basically straight votes for 2nd. So it was unanimous that he was in 2nd. Urs Kausinski looked very impressive here, and he placed 3rd with 15 points, so unanimous votes for 3rd place. Now, Breon, who wound up in 4th place with 20 points, was pretty much a unanimous decision. 5 points separating him and Urs, so it really wasn't close between 3rd and 4th, which I think is what makes this such an interesting placing, is not only were people not really expecting that to be the result, but it looks like based on these scores, the judges were pretty certain that that was the way things were going to go. I mean, it doesn't look like there was much disagreement there, or any disagreement for that matter. Then you had Michael DeBoule in 5th, who brought very impressive conditioning, and Peter Molnar rounding out the top 6 with a 6th place finish. Now, let's take a look at Breon specifically, because like I said, I was there at the prejudging, and I was sitting right behind the judges' front row, and I took this video of Breon while I was sitting there, and honestly, I thought Breon looked really impressive. And I'm trying to figure out what exactly changed or what the deciding factor was that led to Breon being beaten by both Urs and Ramon, who, again, just recently at the Olympia, this past Olympia just a few months ago, Breon beat both of them. Now, I definitely think that both Ramon and Urs improved from how they looked at the Olympia. I think Ramon, to me, looked a lot bigger and fuller than he looked at the Olympia, and I think Urs obviously looked crazy shredded at this show. But Breon, to me, did not look like he really slipped from the Olympia. To me, he still looked very sharp. He had a ton of detail, which Breon is known for. I think he looked, just as impressive as he looked in a lot of the update pictures that we saw leading into the show that led us to believe that Breon was going to look very impressive here. I didn't think that he was off. In this video, you see Breon flex his quads, and you can see cross striations in his quads. You can see crazy detail in the side of his abdominal wall near his serratus muscles. He's got crazy detail vascularity in his arms. I'm not really seeing where Breon missed the mark here. The crowd went crazy when he came out, and obviously that's to be expected because he won the Olympia, so they know they're looking at a Mr. Olympia champion posing. But I didn't think anybody seemed to think, in the crowd at least, that anything was off. Maybe you could argue he was a little bit flat, but maybe it really is that the standard for classic physique is changing. This is a conversation that we had going into the era of Chris Bumstead, that maybe they are moving away from a physique like Breon's, from a structure like Breon's, and more towards a physique like Chris. But then we kind of got a wrench thrown into that, when Rough Diesel started becoming runner-up, because he has an entirely different physique to what Chris is. I would say Ramon, looking at how Ramon looked at this show, is a lot more similar to a structure of a Chris Bumstead. He's a taller guy. He's certainly a bigger guy, and that has a lot to do with the taller guys having a higher weight limit. But like I said, when Breon first lost the title to Chris, maybe the standard is just changing because this is such a new division. It's only been around since 2016. Keep in mind how short of a time that really is in the grand scheme of how long the Olympia's been around, and then in the scheme of how long professional bodybuilding's been around. 6 years. I mean, it's almost nothing. Maybe the standard of what they're looking for is changing. I mean, if you look back to the first Mr. Olympia that won the Classic Physique, Danny Hester, he hasn't really been a top placer for the past few years, and he certainly hasn't been in the conversation to win the title pretty much since the first one that he won. So they moved away from his physique really pretty quickly. So maybe it is just a matter of Breon's physique is not what they're looking for anymore, because in all honesty, I don't think Breon did anything wrong. To me, it didn't look like he missed the mark at all. And I know I said this before, but it's like me and Breon had a little bit of a disagreement when I was rooting for Chris Bumstead, and I thought Chris Bumstead's physique was going to be the new standard. Breon didn't like me saying that, so me and Breon kind of got off on that foot of him thinking I didn't like him, but it's not that I didn't like him. I do like his physique. I just preferred Chris Bumstead's. So take that with this analysis here, that even with me looking at this with a lens of Breon doesn't like me, he's made it clear that he doesn't like me, I still think he should have placed higher, and I'm surprised that he didn't. I really thought he looked good here. And I certainly don't want to take away from the accomplishment of Urs Kelsinski and Ramon Dino. I thought Ramon looked absolutely incredible. I thought Urs looked sliced just to the bone. I mean, he looked crazy good. I will say I did think Urs looked a little bit flat at prejudging. And again, the main source of this being surprising to me is I thought Breon's back was superior to both Ramon and Urs, and I thought that was one of the main things that kept them from beating him at the Olympia. And then I also thought that his biceps, his arms were superior to both Ramon and Urs because he had better peaks on his biceps that seemed to go better with his physique and the flow of his posing. Urs has a little bit smaller biceps. I think that's one of the weak points that he needs to work on. Ramon has a little bit of a longer head to his biceps that kind of prevents him from having the peak that Breon does, but I guess that argument doesn't really apply because Chris Bumstead was able to overcome the issue that he had with his biceps. His biceps obviously weren't the most genetically perfect shaped peaks, but I do think there's these elements of Breon's physique that were still very good here. His back, his biceps, the detail that he brings to the stage, the resume that he brings, the track record that he brings of beating both these guys at the Olympia. So I want to pose the question to you guys. What do you guys think was the deciding factor in placing Breon where he placed? Because when people ask me why I think Breon placed fourth, because a lot of people also thought that was a controversial call, the only real reason that I can come up with is the standard must be changing, because I don't think that Breon did anything wrong here. And I'm curious to see what the future holds for Breon with a switch to 212. I mean, he is, I've mentioned this before, he's in his 40s. If I'm not mistaken, he's 42. So a big career shift like this at that age, it's going to be interesting to see if there's payoff in that. Because you think about some of the obstacles that Breon would face if he made it to the 212 Olympia, I just don't see a scenario where Breon beats a guy like Derek Lunsford. I just don't see that. But as always, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.